Hello everyone and welcome at last to Fist of the North Star Ken's Rage, which is a character action game deceptively labeled as a Dynasty Warriors game. But don't let people lie to you. The game starts out in medias res, which means, well, we're at the very end of the story, but the game is using it as a tutorial. The powers we have here, we're not going to have when the game starts proper. This is more of a glimpse at how strong you'll be by the end of the game.
Are you alright?
It'll take more than that to stop me now. What's the matter?
Because this level is being used as a faux tutorial, that means that the enemies here are rather dumbed down compared to how strong they will be when the game starts. So even though timeline-wise this is the final level, the enemies are way weaker than they would be. Something you've probably already noticed about this game is that your attacks don't really go through enemies, they stop at the enemies. And they give you a heavy, satisfying thud noise. But the fact that they stop at the enemies instead of going through them means you need to aim your attacks carefully, as you're about to see. By evenly dispersing that attack, I was able to ensure that no one would try to hit me from behind while I was doing my combo. You can use your attack animations as a reasonable indicator for the hit detection, but at the same time, the hit detection is also lenient enough that you won't get frustrated at not being able to hit enemies. There's even a handy trail that goes through the air that follows your attacks, so you can see exactly where the attacks are going and where they're going to hit at, making it a lot easier to memorize which attacks are good for which situations. The level design will sometimes resemble old-school action video games, both from the 2D era and early 3D eras of gaming, which I appreciate. Up here's our first weapon. Now, the weapons are meant to be used long-term. They're just things lying around in the environment that we can use to take out our enemies easier. We can either hit enemies with the weapon straight up, or we can throw this at them. Oh, it missed. Some weapons are better just being smashed at enemies, and some weapons are better thrown. You can pretty easily use your judgment to find out which is which, just depending on the weapon's appearance. This section right here is meant to teach us about physics objects. There are a lot of objects in the environment that we can destroy. In fact, most of the objects in the environment we can destroy. And some of them we can blast into enemies to knock them over and deal damage. But this time we're just knocking them out of our way. Alright, and now that we're in the real first level, we get our introduction to mission objectives. Some of them are optional, some of them are not. This one is mandatory. We need to protect the villagers from these thugs.
Those guys are part of a gang called Seed that's terrorizing this region. We should get out while we can.
I'll never forget this.
So each mission objective we complete gives us a reward. For example, the next one will give us extra karma, which is our experience points that we use to buy upgrades after the fight is over. I'm sure you just noticed the camera zoom in dramatically right then, and that's because if we hit an enemy into a breakable object, we get way more experience points from them. So it's always in your best interest to use attacks with heavy knockback if there are breakable objects in the area. It's also way more satisfying to hit your enemies into something that smashes to pieces than it is just to throw them to the ground. That little yellow square beneath our health bar means we just got our signature move, the Hokuto 100 Crack Fist. And each signature move has its own strengths, and each one is best used against different enemies. That pop-up just there was trying to tell us about Meridian Shock, which is the mechanic that we use to stun enemies. The more consecutive hits we deliver on an enemy, the greater chance they have to enter Meridian Shock. When they're in a state of shock, they have electrical discharge around them, and they take way more damage from our attacks, especially our signature moves. So there is an advantage to dragging your combo out longer, especially if you want to get more points from destroying a bunch of enemies all at once. And in case you haven't noticed, we can grab enemies and run around with them. While we're running around with an enemy in our hands, all the other enemies get knocked over easily, which means it's a great way to clear a path. When you're holding an enemy, basically you turn into a bulldozer. And you can either throw the enemy to the ground after you're done with him, or kick him into a wall. Both are equally valid options.
Garbage. And I hate garbage.
Now, we just absolutely fucking wreck those guys with physics objects. Physics objects deal immense amount of damage to enemies, and if there are any lying around, it's your best bet to use them instead of your fists. This game is really, really good at making you feel powerful. I mean, we just shot that guy into the air using our aura. But yes, physics objects are incredibly useful if they're lying around, but if they're not, don't worry about it, because there's probably something else you can use to beat bad guys with. Like this explosive barrel over here. But we won't worry about that until we break open these soda machines. A lot of destructible objects have skill points, or power-ups inside of them, or simply health refills. If something looks like it sticks out from the environment even a little bit, go punch it. There's probably something hiding inside. Explosive weapons are a very dangerous blessing. They annihilate enemies, but they can also deal massive damage to you if you're caught in the radius. So, you know, you might want to throw it from far away, is what I'm saying. Now, our normal fists will do a decent amount of damage, but of course, the meat of the combo system is in our kicks, which have a blue aura surrounding them.
Green must be being held by their boss. Come on!
Any attacks we use with a blue aura will be significantly stronger and will activate Ken's martial arts style, Hokuto Shinken. If a blue attack hits a weaker enemy, he will explode into a burst of blood, and we'll get way more points from that than if we just punched him to death. Attacks with aura are also capable of causing massive knockback or simply knocking enemies into the air where you can juggle them. There's no reason not to use aura attacks all the time, is what I'm saying.
What's the matter?
We just used a taunt, which I used a few times before now. Using a taunt causes the enemies all to hop in a pile where they're easier to hit, but it also puts them in a state of increased aggression, where they're way more likely to hit you. Before an enemy is about to deal an attack that's significantly powerful, they will glow. So when you see an enemy glowing, it's best to press the dodge button immediately, or just hit them before they can deliver their attack. Now, enemies can deliver weaker attacks that won't knock you over, and they won't glow for those ones. Well, we got ourselves caught in a group of enemies, which is bad. It's very easy to avoid getting hit, but when you do get hit, you can't get out of it until all the enemies are done hitting you. This is because even the small enemy attacks cause a tiny amount of knockback, and unless you're in the middle of a combo, that knockback will make you open to more attacks from them. No matter how easy I may make the game seem, if you underestimate its difficulty, you will get your shit kicked in. Especially by the bosses. But even the normal enemies can be dangerous if they gang up on you.
You killed my men!
Boss characters or commanders have a guard meter, which is that shield right in their chest. After we deplete the guard meter, they will finally be vulnerable, but before we deplete it, none of our attacks will actually do anything. The quickest way to deplete their guard meter is with either a really strong attack or really consecutive fast attacks.
I'm gonna rip you to pieces!
So when an enemy's health is halfway down, they slowly regain a bit of their stamina. But on the bright side, after the health is halfway down, they're also weak to one of your signature moves. It's just about finding out which one. Now, because we only have one signature move at the time, Zed is weak to that one, the Hokuto 100 Crack Fist. Dealing critical damage with one of our signature moves gives us a huge amount of points. You saw those stars appear when we used our signature move on him? That means we're about to do a critical hit. And you saw how quickly his health drained as a result. Now, Zed does have his own signature moves, and we can see when he's about to activate them because he glows, like that. And as soon as you see him start to glow, you want to smash that dodge button. Because if you let him glow for too long, it will be too late to dodge. And then you'll be stuck in his signature move no matter what you do. That may sound easy, but it actually requires fast reflexes, because if he glows for even more than a second, you're already trapped in his combo and you can't get out. You're gonna get hit with it.
You are already dead.